I'm Jarod Whaley with DS Outdoors, and this is the story behind how I harvested this big bluff buck, currently my largest whitetail to date. Growing up in Wisconsin, I was out in the woods pretty early on with both my father and brother. Over the past 10 years, I've realized that you go from shooting the first deer that comes to the field to wanting to shoot the biggest buck out there that you've watched on trail camera all year long. Sometimes you got to shoot a doe, depending on the conservation aspect of how you want to hunt, but everybody is out there to shoot that big buck. This year, I was finally able to do that. Sunday morning, woke up, it was 7 degrees outside. It was super chilly, not as windy though, and I was really excited to get to the woods. When we got out there, instantly had action. I think opening is around 6:30 a.m. here in Wisconsin. When that 6:30 time came, there was does and fawns and a few small bucks in the field, and they continued to feed for the next, I would say, hour or two, and then they all went into the woods. 9, I'd seen a couple turkeys, but after that it was slow again, and we left, came home, had a good bowl of hot chili.
If you're looking to stay warm, comfortable, and take your next hunting trip up a level, you'll want to check out Tideway. Tideway is dedicated to equipping outdoor enthusiasts with quality products that can be trusted to get the job done no matter where the adventure takes you.
Got back out there around 1 o'clock. When I got into my shack finally, probably 1:45, 2 p.m., they were still there, and luckily I hadn't spooked them at all. And it wasn't, they stayed there for another 30 minutes or 45 minutes, just kind of hanging out, feeding, and then they went into the woods. And then that 4 p.m. time, like that hot spot, it just turns on. 15 minutes later, there was 4 or 5 does in the field, a couple fawns, and a young, heavy 8-pointer that we'd watched all summer long and into the fall. We had actually said that he was on our save list. He's a nice deer. It was really difficult for me probably a couple years ago to say, I'm not going to shoot this deer, I really want this deer. But this year, I was really excited to get something bigger. He was out there all night long, and then I would say about 10 to 15 minutes later, around the 4:22, 4:23 p.m. time, another small young 8-pointer, nothing that I was really interested in, and the second one just didn't show himself. It was probably a good 5 or 6 minutes before I watched his tines raise up in the edge of the cornfield, kind of in a back little hole that really neither one of us can see. He raised his tines, and then I knew he was a shooter for sure. He was one that we don't really have a lot of video or trail camera pictures of, with what we thought was 13 points. But yeah, he raised his head and I got ready. He started walking up over the knoll towards me, up to about, he was probably 100 yards away now, and I could just see the back of his body, his head for sure. And I was just watching him through the scope, turned the GoPro on because I knew he was headed right towards me where I had does and fawns in front of me, and it was game on from there. He actually fed for a few more minutes after that, and he decided to not want to present me a shot. And it was probably the longest couple minutes of my life in the woods. It was crazy. It was just like, there's a buck right here that I want to harvest, and just wasn't going to be able to. And then he finally turned his head, started walking sideways, and then he looked at me, and that's when I shot. After that moment, it's just kind of like, you sit there and wait. Again, longest few minutes of your life, you just trying to relive the moment between excitement and emotions and all that. And so I actually went back, reviewed the footage on the GoPro that I had. I figured out that it was a really good shot. Texted my father and said, there's got to be a buck down. I'm just gonna wait here a few minutes. But yeah, I just packed up my gear, headed out, met my dad in the middle of the field, and when I crossed over the knoll, the buck had ran about 45 yards and somersaulted and expired. When I walked up to it, first thing I did was start counting points. I had seen that it had a couple broken off tines, but I think that there's 10 legal points. Another one on the G2 that got broken off, one on the G4 that was split and broken off, and there was another small kicker right under the brow tine that wasn't quite an inch long. I hope you enjoy the footage, and as always, thanks for watching.